named for Pythagoras, a Greek mathematician who lived in the 500s BC. We now know that the Babylonians, Egyptians, and Chinese were all aware of this relationship before its discovery by Pythagoras. So basically, people were doing math, they just didn't necessarily get credit for it, for whatever reason. So everyone knew the relationship, but Pythagoras got credit for it because he gave it a name. Do you want me to close that door? So, do you guys know the Pythagorean theorem?
Yeah. Heard of it.
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
Yes.
Ingrain it into your memory forever and ever for the rest of your life. Put it on your tombstone.
A lot.
It's actually kind of helpful.
I'm dead?
If you ever, build something. No, probably not when you're dead.
Okay.
Alright, so we can only use the Pythagorean theorem for right triangles. So don't go trying to use it on other triangles. It only applies to right triangles. So the Pythagorean theorem says that if you take the square of this leg and add it to the square of this leg, that's equal to the hypotenuse squared. So specifically, leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. You can't do hypotenuse squared plus leg squared equals leg squared. It doesn't work the other way around. All right, a Pythagorean triple. It's never big enough. I can never get all the way across. Pause. Hold on. A Pythagorean triple meaning three, is a set of numbers that satisfies a squared plus b squared equals c squared, specifically whole numbers, so basically like pretty numbers. There's tons of numbers that satisfy the Pythagorean theorem, but only certain whole numbers that satisfy them. These are just a few. So 3, 4, 5, that means 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. That's like the most common one. 5, 12, 13. Also, you'll see that one a decent amount. 8, 15, 17. Just another one. These are just a few. There's a bunch. Like an infinite number of them. I think that's still being worked on, actually. The proof of that. Actually, I think it was proved a few years ago by Andrew something or other. Anywho. So a lot. You don't have to memorize them, okay? But if you can remember maybe like one or two, it'll save you some time. But you don't have to. All right, let's apply the Pythagorean theorem. So what we're trying to do here is find the hypotenuse of this triangle. For some reason, my triangle symbol got really tiny, so triangle ABC. So we have a leg of 20 and a leg of 21, and this is the hypotenuse. Now you can call the hypotenuse whatever you want, but the Pythagorean theorem calls it C, so I'm going to call it C, but it doesn't matter. You can call it X if you want. You know that it's the hypotenuse because it's the side across from the 90-degree angle, right? That's how we know it's a hypotenuse. So if it's not across from the 90-degree angle, it's not the hypotenuse. So in order to find the hypotenuse, we're going to do 20 squared plus 21 squared equals c squared. Now, I'm going to use a calculator for these. And then we're going to not use a calculator. So I'm going to show you with a calculator and without a calculator how we would do basically math. So 20 squared, you're basically squaring 2 and 10, so that's 4 and 100, making 400. And 21 squared is 441. So after you square them, so you're following PEMDAS, by the way. So there were no parentheses. We did the exponents. There's no multiplication or division. Now we're going to add. So 400 and 441, that's 841. There's no subtraction. So now we just have to solve. So if 841 is c squared, we're going to square root both sides to get c. So on my calculator, I'm going to type in the square root of 841. Now it happens to be like a nice number and not a decimal. If you don't have a calculator, or if it's not a nice number, you might just have to simplify the radical. So we did this like before, but just to reiterate. So you would think of numbers that go into 841. Now this is a hard one because the only number that goes into 841 is 29, and you probably wouldn't think of that one. But you'd break it down, and then anything that you can make a group of 2 of, that would be coming out of the radical. So there you go. Hypotenuse is 29. Questions? Okay. You try. So we're going to express our answer in simplest radical form. And in this one, we are missing a leg. So we actually know the hypotenuse and we're missing a leg. So
Dang, must be wobbling.
if we're using the Pythagorean theorem, one of my legs is x, one of my legs is 8, and then my hypotenuse is 20. So this is x squared plus 64 equals 400. Then I'm going to subtract 64. So I get x squared equals 536. No, 336. I don't know why I said 500. And then I'm going to square root that. Now, if you type this in on your calculator, it's going to give you an irrational rounded answer. So, side note, on your calculator, it's about 18.3. But we want it in simplified radical form. So, we're going to take it aside and try to simplify. What's a number that goes into 336?
26.
3. Okay, we'll try 3. So that's going to go in 112 times. What goes into 112?
2.
Okay. So that goes in 54 times. What goes into 54?
9.
9 and 6.
Is not 64.
No. And then this is 3 and 3. And then this is going to be 2 and 3. So we can make a group of 2 3s. We can make a group of 2 2s.
Yeah,
She's right, that's a 56.
Oh, what, this? Oh, not 54? Oh, man, what did I do? I messed it up. Hold on, rewind.
Yeah, I thought something was wrong.
Messed it up. Okay, wait, go back. Back in time. What goes into 56?
7, 8.
There we go. Okay, 8 is 2 and 4, and this is 2 and 2. Okay, so just kidding. We can make a group of 2 2s, and then we can make this group of 2 2s. What's left over?
3.
3 and 7.
3 and also 7. So this 2 and this 2 you'll multiply on the outside. That makes 4. And then this 3 and this 7 you'll multiply. That makes 21. So x is 4 root 21.
Sounds good.
And that's simplest radical form. And then if you want, you could check your answer. So if you type in the square root of 336 and then you type in 4 square root 21, you should get the same number. Because they are the same number, one's just simplified. Okay, you try. Question. All right.
If he gets it right, if he can go up to the board and do it by himself and get it right.
I did the other one, so I still get a candy.
I'm gonna do this one.
You go up. You go up.
You don't have to draw the picture, I just drew it because I like drawing. So 6 squared
Do a smiley face.
plus x squared equals 12 squared. So 6 squared is 36, and 12 squared is 144. So we're going to subtract 36,
What do you mean?
and it's going to give us 108.
Man, the Wi-Fi here has been tripping, disconnecting.
Then we're going to square root that. Okay, and so the square root of 108. What goes into 108?
4.
4.
Okay, so that's
Wait.
Or 2 and 54.
Sure about that.
2? I think 4 goes in 2, but we'll do 2. 2 and 54.
27 and 2.
Okay.
3, 9. And 3 and 3.
Okay. So we can make a group of 2 3s, a group of 2 2s, and we'll multiply 2 times 3 and get 6. There's a leftover 3, so 6 root 3 is our answer.
Wait, what? How'd you get the 6?
So 2 2s,
Okay.
2 3s.
Oh, okay, I got it.
When you multiply those together, that gives you 6, and then there's the leftover 3.
Got it.
Questions?
No.
Okay, moving along.
We're sure about
Dog agility courses often contain seesaw obstacle. Look how cute this guy is. As shown below. To the nearest inch, how far above the ground are the dog's paws when the seesaw is parallel to the ground? So as he goes up, we want to know what this distance is. So I'm going to call this D for distance. Okay? So this is a right triangle because anytime you put something on the ground, it makes a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to solve. D squared plus 26 squared equals 36 squared. And we know that 36 is the hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle.
These are some large numbers.
Go back. Okay. Yep, so I'm going to use you're going to use your calculator regardless because it says to the nearest inch, which means you're going to need to calculate. So 26 squared is 676, and 36 squared is 1,296.
Does not have a perfect square.
Subtract 676, you get 620, and then on your calculator we're going to square root 620, and it gives us approximately 24.8997999. Like, I get a lot of decimals on my calculator. So if it says to the nearest inch,
25.
then that means, yeah, we're going to say about 25 inches.
Oh, so you can estimate it. You don't have to.
Well, it says to the nearest inch, so that's rounded to the nearest inch, because you would round up since it's 0.8. So we have w squared plus 11 squared equals 19 squared. 11 squared is 121, and 19 squared, oh, thank you, 361. We need to subtract 121 and get 240. Now, this number does not square root nicely, so we're going to use our calculator. And it says round to the nearest tenth. So that is 15.5 inches. Technically, you get 15.4919, blah, blah, blah. So we're rounding up. Questions?
Yeah.
Okay, next one. So just making it a little bit harder, basically. I'm drawing a picture. It says the length of one leg of a triangle is 2 times x plus 1. The length of the other leg is 4x. And the hypotenuse is 5x minus 2. We want to find x. Yeah, this is where it gets hard.
No,
You're going to leave when it gets hard?
absolutely not.
No one likes a quitter, Max.
I really need to bathroom, like.
Go ahead.
Okay.
You better start running, boy.
Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to distribute here because when it's written like that, it's just trying to make it tricky for you. So 2x plus 2 when we distribute. Okay. Alright, now, Pythagorean theorem says we want to do 2x plus 2 squared plus 4x squared equals 5x minus 2 squared.
Well, can I
Now,
wait?
when you square something, that means to multiply it by itself. So we have to multiply 2x plus 2 by itself, and we have to multiply 4x by itself, and we have to multiply 5x minus 2 by itself. That's what it means to square something. So you can't just like square the 2 and be done with it. That's not how it works. You can't just be like, oh yeah, that's 4x squared plus 4. No, wrong. Don't do that.
Wrong.
So what we're going to do here is FOIL. Do you remember our good old pal FOIL? 2x times 2x is 4x squared. 2x times 2 is 4x. 2 times 2x is 4x. And 2 times 2 is 4. Four x times 4x is going to be, because 4 times 4 is 16, and then x times x is x squared, so that's going to be 16x squared. Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. Then we'll FOIL over here. Now there is a shortcut to FOIL. Okay, I'm going to teach you.
It's
So-
called fall.
Instead of FOILing, whenever you're squaring a binomial, you can do this shortcut. So the shortcut is square this. So square the first thing. That would be 25x squared. Then you'll square the second term, which would be 4. And then you're going to double the 2 in between. So 5 times negative 2 is negative 10x. If we double that, that gives us negative 20x. So square the first term, square the last term, and then double the product of the 2. That's your shortcut. Otherwise, you can just FOIL, like we did over here. All right, so going to this left side, there's lots of terms there. We're just going to collect everything. So I can combine 4x squared and 16x squared. That's going to give me 20x squared. And I can combine 4x and 4x to 8x. And then we got plus 4. Are you writing this down?
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're not even on the right page.
Oh, my pants aren't even.
So now we're going to get everything on one side because it's quadratic. You want to get it on the, typically you want to get it on the side where x squared is bigger. So since there's 25x squared here and 20x squared here, I'm going to put everything on the right side. So subtract this, subtract this, subtract this.
Oh, I gotta give you my.
Okay, so that's gone, gone, gone. We get 0 equals 25 minus 20 is 5x squared. Negative 20x minus 8x is negative 28x. And then 4 minus 4 is nothing.
My review sheet. I never gave it to you.
You're supposed to keep it.
I just need one.
Other review sheet.
G1, put the phone away. Now,
For the.
to solve, we are going to take out a greatest common factor. What's our greatest common factor?
4.
No.
X.
X. Just
Oh.
X.
Eric.
So when we factor out an X, we're left with 5X minus 28 because we take an X out of 5X squared and an X out of 28X. Then we take the factors and set them equal to 0 and solve. This one's solved. This one we have to add 28 and then divide by 5. When you're done, you want to plug your answers back into the triangle just to make sure that nothing is either 0 or negative, because remember, that doesn't make sense.
That's the other way.
If I plug in 0, what do I get here?
0.
Okay, that doesn't make sense. You can get rid of that. Now, 28/5 is like 5 3/5. So basically you just want to like make sure that maybe if you put it here, it's still greater than 2. It is, so it's good. It's not making anything negative. So this is our answer. And we only have one, because this one didn't work. Okay. So as we continue, we're going to keep doing these like algebra review type topics. I need you guys. Okay, the converse of the Pythagorean theorem. It just works backwards. So it says if a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, then it's a right triangle. Okay, obvious, right? So we're just going to do one example of these. So it says a triangle has these side lengths. Is it a right triangle? Now, you need to know which one C is. How do I know which one C is? It didn't tell me.
It's hypotenuse.
I know, but which one's the hypotenuse?
The longest one.
Right, exactly. So this is C. So we just need to know if 85 squared is equal to 84 squared plus 13 squared.
Definitely not.
Let's see.
Can I use the bathroom, please?
Sure. 84 squared is 7,056. 13 squared is 169. And 85 squared is 7,225.
That's close.
So let's see. Oh, it's. Oh, why did I put so many 2's there?
Yeah, I was like, what?
It does wind up. Why do I keep doing that? It does wind up being the same, actually. So, yes. Your explanation is your work. If they weren't equal, you'd just say no. Easy, right?
You sure?
Nope.
Oh.
They say if the hypotenuse squared is bigger than a squared plus b squared, then it's an obtuse triangle. So on the other side it says if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then it's a right triangle. Now we're kind of going a step farther. If the hypotenuse squared is bigger than these guys, then it's obtuse, which means this angle is larger than 90. And if c squared is smaller than a squared plus b squared, that makes it acute. So it means this angle is smaller than 90. So this one's bigger than 90, this one's smaller than 90 if c squared is bigger or smaller than a squared and b squared. So now we're going to use all three theorems to determine if this triangle is right, acute, or obtuse. So we're still going to follow the same logic. The biggest side is C. But we're not going to put an equal sign in between here. So we're going to do 6 squared plus 11 squared is something 14 squared. We don't know. Less than, greater than, or equal to. It's one of them. So we know that 6 squared is 36. And 11 squared is 121. And 14 squared is 196.
That one is for sure. No
So we're going to add 121 to 36, and that gives me 157. Now, what sign can I put here? What's bigger?
196.
196 is bigger. So
Greater than.
if the hypotenuse, so if this is bigger than this, that makes this obtuse. Okay. If this number was bigger than 196, that would make it acute. And if they're equal, we know they're right. Okay. All right. I am going to have you do this. You try. There's points. Now,
Oh my.
Oh, dang. Oh,
I just
well.
paid one.
sorry.
Eric,
These points...
we hot dog.
Shh. These points are points on the coordinate plane. Now, if you want to graph it, you can graph it, but you don't have to. So I'm just going to super quick graph it so you have a visual. So we have point D, we have point O, and then we have point G. So this is a triangle. We want to figure out if that is right, obtuse, or cute. What we need to do is you need to find the length of
Oh no.
this,
Oh, I hate the graph.
this,
I
and
like graphing points out like solid.
This?
Oh, I hate the graph.
and then after you find each length, then you figure out if a squared plus b squared is less than, greater than, or equal to c squared.
May I solve this with a protractor?
No, you can't. So here's what we'll do. First we'll find the length of OG. So to find the length of OG, we're going to do the distance formula. Do you remember the distance formula?
D equals the square root of
What the heck?
yeah x that one.
That's the distance formula.
I was close.
So we're going to take the x's and subtract. We'll take the y's and subtract. If you have my fancy calculator, I'll show you how to plug all this in at once.
You show us?
Yeah,
Are we
ready?
allowed that on the test?
Yeah.
Are we allowed the calculator?
So look, square root 2 minus 5 squared plus 1 minus negative 2 squared, answer. Look how fast.
Boom.
Now, since it's a decimal, I'm going to take away the square root actually because I don't want to round here. So I'm going to see what it is, what just the inside is. So just the inside is 18. So that makes OG the square root of 18. So it took away the radical. All right, let's find DG.
Did you?
So DG, we're using D and G. So square root will subtract the x's, negative 2 minus 5. And we'll subtract the y's, negative 3 minus negative 2. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to leave out the square root and just do the inside part. So I get
Oh, so many words
50.
out of D, O, and G.
I know, right?
God.
So I got the square root of 60.
God. Go.
All right, we got one more. DO.
Goo. G-O-O.
Shh. All right, so DO, we're going to do negative 2 minus 2 plus negative 3 minus 1. This is going to be 4 squared plus 4 squared. That's the square root of 32. Okay. Now, final step. Which one of these is biggest?
DG.
Yeah. So this is C, and this is maybe A, and this is B.
The J.
So A squared plus B squared, we're going to see what it is compared to C squared. Like,
It's larger.
is it greater than, less than, equal to? If A is the square root of 18, then that makes A squared just 18. If B is the square root of 32, B squared is just 32. And if C is the square root of 50, that makes C just 50. 18 plus 32 is going to be 60. So
That's 50.
50, sorry.
So they're
Like
equal.
angle.
So, okay, so they're equal, so that makes this a right triangle.
Yeah, we solved it. Buonissimo. We get it.
So that means this is where the right angle is.